how's it going? So I'm out in the garden working today. Nothing major, no big projects. I'm just kind of fussing in some flower beds. But I've been noticing a few different issues kind of popping up in certain areas of my garden. And they're ones that kind of typically happen this time of year. So I just wanted to talk about them a little bit. Usually when it gets warmer out, like we're in the 90s right now and we have been for a few days. And it looks like it's going to be pretty consistent from this point on and we'll just get warmer from there. But that's when I notice a huge boom in the population of both weeds and insects. And I'm dealing with a particular problem on my plants, on some of them, where my leaves are getting skeletonized. Let me show you. So here are the leaves. All these green ones are off of salvia. You can see they're heavily skeletonized. Look at that. You can see right through them. And then some coleus leaves, which initially I thought this was all just hail damage, which I think the bigger rips are from hail because these plants were all exposed. But all of this skeletonation is definitely not just from hail. I've got something eating on them. And you don't want to let a problem like this carry on because the plants need the tissue on their leaves in order to photosynthesize properly. So if you have this start to spread all over your plant and you just let the insects keep going, they can really damage the health of your plant. Like the overall vigor of the plant will be reduced, and if it carries on, I think it can eventually kill your plant. So you do want to get on it if you see something like this going on in your garden. And here, I live in Eastern Oregon, Zone 5 high desert. There's usually 3 things we look for. Some kind of a beetle or the larva stage of the beetle, which you can usually find during the daytime. Earwigs, which you can usually find any time of the day, which I think is what I'm dealing with here. Or it might be some type of a caterpillar or slug. So the first thing you want to do is go inspect your plant, and you can do that right in the middle of the day and see if you can find the culprit, which sometimes you can, and then you can take care of the problem right away. But sometimes they're a little bit more elusive, which is kind of what I'm dealing with. I cannot find what is eating this plant. The second thing you can do is go out in the evening or when it's dark, because caterpillars and slugs, they feed in the night. So you can go out with a flashlight and look particularly on the underside of the leaves and see if you can find anything eating on your plant. Sometimes it takes a while, like you have to inspect some plants because they're sneaky and they can hide really easily. So you just want to make a thorough inspection of your plants to see if you can see what you're dealing with, because whatever you need to use to combat that bug, it might be a little different depending on what it is. And so I can't find what's eating on my plant, so I'm kind of gonna treat it with a 2-prong approach here. I think it's probably earwigs because those seem the most prevalent in my garden right now, but I don't necessarily want to just run out and just put a bait down for earwigs if that's not what's going on, because one, it won't necessarily take care of the problem, and earwigs are not all bad. I know they look nasty and they're creepy little bugs and I don't like them, especially if they come in our house, but they also eat other insects and they feed on like decaying composting material at the base of your plants. So they do some good as well. So since I'm not sure, I'm using 2 different types of baits. Both of them actually have one of the same active ingredients, which is spinosad, which is a bacteria that's naturally found in the soil. And one of them is a pellet and one of them is a powder. So I'm gonna do kind of a foliar plant application of the spinosad and then also the pellet around the base, just in case the earwigs or slugs is what I'm dealing with. So here they are right here. Let me kind of line them up and kind of cast a shadow over them. So we've got the bug and slug killer, which I've showed you before, and I'll probably show you again because it works really well. So first off, it kills slugs and snails, which I know a lot of you guys have big issues with those. We get slugs a little bit, but we're so dry that we don't deal with those a lot, thankfully. But there's a lot of things on the label for this insecticide. So earwigs are on the label, cutworms, which a lot of people have dealings with in vegetable gardens in particular. But this one is more of a pellet. So you can see down in there, they're more of a grain, so it's nothing that's going to actually adhere to a leaf and take care of anything that's actually on the plant. It'll take care of whatever's crawling to the plant. And that's where this one right here comes in. I just figured that if I'm out there baiting, I want to make sure that I'm just doing a real good job so I don't have to do it again. So the dust will kind of adhere to the tops of the leaves and on the undersides and will take care of anything that crawls up the plant, while this one will take care of things that are crawling around on the ground and hopefully keep them away from the plant. And the difference here, hopefully this doesn't spill. This one has iron phosphate as well, which is, I believe, what takes care of your slugs and snails, in addition to the spinosad. And I I like the idea of doing it this way because one, they're both for organic gardening, and I'm not spraying anything that has any kind of strong residual. They're not going on any sort of blooms. I can keep it away from that. It's not going to hurt anything that's flying around, so no honeybees and butterflies. So I feel like if I'm dealing with an insect problem, I try to deal with it as responsibly as possible. In fact, if you know you're dealing with some kind of a caterpillar issue, I brought this out because we're already using this here on our property. This is Thuricide. The active ingredient is Bacillus thuringiensis, or BT, which is a bacteria found in the soil as well. And what it does is it's a very targeted, specific insecticide that kills caterpillars. So very good for like cabbage or a lot of different vegetables. We use it on our petunias and calibrachoas because we get budworms horribly bad. And if you're not going to spray this, so like if you plan to not spray this, then you may as well not plant those annuals. It's not worth it because they eat all the flowers to where the whole plant is just green, and you're not enjoying any of like the fruits of your labor for planting those. So we actually have to spray this on a weekly basis here for usually like 3 or 4 weeks to get on top of and preventatively keep budworms out of our property. So if that's what you're dealing with, this is a really good spray for that. So now I want to go show you the actual plants and show you where I'm dealing with it, and then I'll show you how I apply the bait. Grab my gloves. So here we are, we're kind of behind the gazebo right now, and I planted some of these new coleus. They're new for next year. They're called Wicked Hot, and I really want them to do well. They're looking pretty other than the fact that bugs found them. So the first thing I'm going to do is sprinkle a little bit of bait around the base of each plant, and then I will dust them with some powder. And each one of these lids has like a spoon, like you can do a lot or you can do a little, which I'll be using this setting on both of them. That flap. So there's the coleus, and it's been baited very well. Now it doesn't look the best, but it won't last for very long. Typically we get the problem under control in about a week, and then we can hose off any remaining dust after that is done. Now you do want to make sure if you're applying the dust to not do it on a windy day, and it's very, very still today, just a very slight breeze, and you want to get as uniform of a layer as possible, both on the top and the underside of the leaf. So what I do is just kind of like dust some of it on top, and then I take my glove and just kind of rough the plant up, and that usually puffs enough of that dust up in the air that a lot of it ends up on the bottom side of these leaves as well. So I did also run back to the barn and I grabbed a spray just in case you don't want to do the powder route or the bait route. I just happen to use a lot of these because I do a lot of this bait for any kind of slugs. I have a lot of hostas, so I just try to make sure to use this liberally to take care of any problem that might arise. So I always have that on hand. But if you want to go with a spray rather than, you know, kind of marring the look of your ornamentals like that, even though it's for a short amount of time, you can use something like this. This is a sulfur and pyrethrin based spray. Earwigs are on the label. You just want to make sure if you're using a contact spray insecticide that you use it responsibly and at the right time of day. I think the most important thing is just educating yourself. If you are 100% unsure as to what bug you're dealing with, you'll want to take a picture of the plant, maybe take a sample of the leaf, or if you find a bug and just don't know what it is, take that in a little baggie into your garden center and have them identify it and let you know what the best method of attack is. That way you're not like wasting money on things and you're using the right kind of stuff. And then depending on what method you used, you just want to make sure you're using it responsibly. So like this spray right here is more of a contact insecticide. So you don't want to be spraying this right in the middle of the day when the honeybees and the butterflies are out feeding on flowers, especially if you're spraying or treating something that flowers, because that can hurt your honeybees and you don't want to do that. So the best time to use it, even if it is an organic spray, is at dusk after the honeybees go down for the evening and they're not out feeding anymore. Just use things as responsibly effectively as you can. So let's go over to the salvia plants and I'll show you those because they're looking pretty sad. We're up by the brick patio area now. These are the 3 Indiglo Girl salvias I planted earlier on this spring. And just look at them. Look at the damage. I kind of let these go a little bit too long. I have cut them back so they have a little bit of their first bloom still left. And they have a lot of buds forming, but boy, they're not going to do very well if I keep letting whatever's eating them eat them. So let's get these baited. Salvia is done, and the powder doesn't look near as bad on these as it does on the coleus because the color contrast of foliage is not quite as bad to the white powder. But anyway, we got a nice, really even layer of powder on all of these plants. So we should be seeing some improvement really soon. So insects are one of the problems I deal with this time of year, and I haven't seen a whole lot yet. Like usually I'm dealing with spider mites and grasshoppers, and I haven't seen any issues with that yet. I'm just mainly dealing with, well, as far as insects I've seen with my own eyes, earwigs, ants, and budworms, which the bug and slug bait will take care of the ants and the earwigs, and that thuricide will take care of the budworms. So it really doesn't take much to keep on top of those. The second thing is weeds, and I get that question a lot, how we maintain our flower beds and keep them so weed free. First of all, they are never weed free. I never have a weed free property. I wish I did, but that is just not the nature of it. Things grow really quickly. If I were to let everything like go, it would just be a matter of like weeks before it looked horrible and the weeds started to take over. That's just the way it goes. In flower beds and inside like the interior of my garden, we hand pull most everything. We just kind of take a systematic approach to it, and we go flower bed by flower bed, and we weed, groom, and maintain like deadhead things and just keep it on a pretty rigid schedule. If we stay to that schedule, I find that we keep on top of it and it never becomes a huge burden because there isn't very much to do. If you just get out there and you kind of make a habit of it, and it's actually really nice to go through and kind of see some nice tangible results to your work, but not feel like you're working your fingers to the bone, like trying to take care of an entire field of weeds because you've let it go too long. But we do have a lot of graveled areas, like the area I'm standing in right now. We have a lot of driveway that we have to maintain, and there's no way that we could hand pull all of the weeds that come up in the driveway. So I'm really excited to try out this natural weed killer. Let me show it to you. This is in a ready-to-use container. It's called Burnout. Its active ingredients are citric acid and clove oil. You can get it in a concentrate, but this one has like the little spray spout right there. I had to put 4 AA batteries in the sprayer, but I think I can continue to use that. Like if I get some concentrate, I can continue to use that sprayer with that kind of spray in it. A couple of good things that I've been reading about it. Now, I don't have a whole lot of personal experience with it yet. I've used it here and there this spring. In fact, I did an Instagram stories about it, and then I completely forgot to update it. I used it when it was much cooler outside, and I sprayed a grass and a broadleaf in that story, and it did eventually kill them, but it took a little bit longer because it was cooler out. Although it does say it's effective down to 40 degrees, which is pretty cool. Like, I don't know, most of us aren't out there spraying weeds when it's under 40 degrees, I don't think. But it's safe around people and pets, which is a huge deal. I know a lot of us want something that we can use that we don't have to worry about. It's peace of mind. Now that Benjamin's out here, he loves to play out here. He wants nothing more than to be outside. So I don't want to use things that could potentially hurt him. And it doesn't translocate, which means it doesn't, like some sprays, you spray it and then if it's really hot, like the fumes can affect things that are around it. I think that's kind of typical of 2,4-D. This one doesn't do that. Wherever you spray it, that's where it stays. It doesn't leach out into the soil or anything like that. It'll also kill both broadleaf and grasses. It's not a selective killer. So you can't go out and spray a dandelion in your grass because it will kill the grass around it as well. So keep that in mind. It's just a broad use herbicide. So now I want to take you guys back behind the barn. I did section off a little spot where there are some weeds. They're not super thick because we have been keeping up on them around here, but I think there's enough back there where we can see some results. So let's head back there. Okay, do you see that spot? I've got 4 stakes with some string, and inside I've got little elm seedlings kind of popping up all over in the gravel. You can see them all over in here, and that's what I want to spray. They're kind of thick right in there. And I probably should have included this little spot in here, so I'll just go ahead and spray these as well. But it's really easy, like once you get it set up, and the setup's easy too, like you just drop a little string or tube down in this container and then put your 4 AA's in right there. And then we've got to switch it off the lock position so it is on, and then you just pull the trigger. Just like that. So now I'm just gonna do this whole little square area, and then we'll go see if we can find some bigger weeds, because it would be fun to see like how, oh, I see one right away. That'll be easy. We'll run over here in a second and we'll get a bigger weed sprayed. So I'm done with that little square. Now check this out right over here. I've got a nice big weed coming up through these boards right here. So we'll go ahead and get this one all sprayed. And now I'm noticing tons that are coming up back here. Okay, so now I want to take this up kind of to the pasture area and kind of mess with the nozzle a little bit, because I think you can get it to where it's more of a steady stream instead of a spray, and that way you can stand and just walk along and spray the weeds. So let's head up there. Okay, so we're up in the pasture area, and you can see, look at the state of our native soil. It is so white and just dry. It's so high alkaline, but you can see the weeds kind of around in this area. So this will be a really good spot to test this out. So I'm gonna set up the camera and just see how the spray gun works. I do love that the sprayer is operated by batteries instead of like having to use a pump sprayer, where you have to put your back into it a lot to pump up your sprayer to get it to work. The other thing about sprays like this, you do want to make sure you're spraying on a nice day, not a windy day, because if you're spraying anything like this and it's really gusty, it can blow, you know, some of the spray over onto a plant that maybe you don't want to spray. And you also want to make sure that there's no rain predicted, or you don't have your sprinklers turn on in that area for at least a couple hours. It says it's rainproof in 1 hour, but I like to spray where I know I have a good like 4 to 6 hours to let the active ingredients really soak into the weeds and do their job. The label says that you'll see results in just hours, but I'm looking forward to seeing what it looks like after several hours. Like right now we're kind of mid-afternoon, so I'm excited to go out this evening and see if the weeds look any different than they do right now, or if it takes till tomorrow or that sort of thing. All right guys, Future Laura here. I wanted to give you an update on how the burnout worked. So it's been, I believe, 3 days. Yep, 3 days since I sprayed the burnout. So I wanted to show you what the weeds are looking like. So most of the area that I sprayed looks like this. You can see all of the dead brown weeds in here, kind of in between the rocks. There are a few still that look like they're just sick, like they're on their way out. And then there were a couple more, you can see right over here, that aren't looking like they're super healthy. Cheddar really wants to get involved. So I feel like it worked pretty well back here. You know, this spot that's right behind the barn stays in the shade for pretty much all day long. And then the weeds up in the pasture area that I sprayed are in full sun all day long, and those are dead. So based on personal experience, it seems like it works faster when they are exposed to full sun and a lot more heat. But you know, even back here, even if you have to come through and spray some of those harder to kill weeds like elm seedlings or weeds that have been allowed to grow a little bit bigger, even if you have to hit them more than one time, it's okay because it is organic. And it's just so much better than those harsher synthetic chemicals that, you know, you would spray instead. So let's head up to the pasture area and I'll show you how those are looking. You can see that, you know, the other day there were just like mounding green weeds up in this area, and I kind of sprayed this spot up to that little drain area up there. I didn't get everything, I don't think, but I sprayed the biggest ones, and you can see how they're looking. That's how we want them to look. Really good results up here. And there were a bunch of little weeds around this drain, and those appear to be gone at this point. So those are the results of this test round, and I will be using it throughout this whole season, and I'm gonna try out several different things. I'm gonna try out, you know, frequency of spraying, also maybe mixing up my own in my own pump sprayer with a concentrate, and then adding in a spreader sticker, which helps the active ingredients adhere to the leaves of the weeds instead of maybe beating up and rolling off a little bit more. Maybe that'll speed up results a little bit. But thus far, I'm pleased with the results. So I will probably be reporting back to you guys throughout the season just to let you know what I find out. So that's pretty much it for today's video. I just wanted to show you guys some of the stuff I'm currently dealing with in my garden and kind of how I attack it, because I really don't want to spend a ton of effort and work and money making my garden look a certain way and just let it go all to insects and weeds, which can take over really quickly. So I like to try to take care of problems quick when I first see something happening, and that way I only have to apply insecticides very sparingly, really. I mean, I can do it in very localized areas. I don't have to blanket insecticide my whole place, and that way I just feel like it's a better way to go, and it keeps my plants happier and healthier and looking a whole lot better, and it makes my life easier too, like this kind of thing right here. You know, I'll spend a lot less time on my hands and knees pulling weeds if I can find something that's natural that will take care of it for me. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one. Bye.